Is everybody ready? Is everybody ready? Chatty group in here today. I'm talking about scams. That's not so good. You know, you got to have your wits about you these days, and which means that the nervous system is always on, ready, looking, watching, and that's the way it is. I want to work with guess who? This is Joy. We called her Joy. There was a group naming experience. I just wanted to go over the parts of the pelvis just to have a sense, because I think it's hard to understand if you can't have a visual, and so having a visual can be helpful. You know what I always talk about, your sit bones right here. So if you're sitting, kind of wiggle around from side to side, this is what you're tipping on. Those are your sit bones. The front of the pelvis, right here, those are your ASIS. You can feel those on the front of your body. They're not separate bones, they're just points. And they're also, sometimes I refer to them as your hip points. This we say is the pubic bone, but as you can see, I'm caught. It's not a bone, it's a cartilage, and it's where the two sides of the pelvis come together. So it's actually called the pubic symphysis. So to know that there's a piece of cartilage in here that is movable can, you know, sometimes help you to understand why you might have pain there. So any place there's an opportunity for movement, it can be an imbalance or movement that's not symmetrical. So I turn the pelvis around, tailbone, yes, or coccyx. This fused set of 5 bones right here, and everybody's got them fused, is called, any guesses?
Coccyx.
That's this. Sacrum. It's the sacred bone. The sacrum, yeah. So if you have SI joint issues, you can see how this Joy has really got loose SI joints. That's this joint and this joint. I'll show you from the front. See the creases there? See? So, and from the front, there's the movement. I'm exaggerating the movement because I loosened the screws here. Sometimes we just need our screws tightened. And the sacrum is meant to be on an angle. See how it's turned? You can probably see it better in here than at home. It's meant to be on a tipping forward angle because then it rests into the first vertebra of the lumbar spine. And when it does that, then the lumbar has this curve. And that's what we're meant to have. The whole spine can act like a shock absorber because it's got these curves. So outward curve, inward curve, upper back is an outward curve, neck is an inward curve, and then the head's back. So that's just a little bit of landmarking. And in the pelvic floor, we've got muscles that go from the tailbone forward to the pubic symphysis. We've got muscles that go from sit bone to sit bone. And there's 3 layers in here. 3 layers and a few holes, depending on if you're male or female. You have one more if you're female. And these muscles are really important to work with. So we're going to kind of do a little bit of pelvic stuff today, hip stuff, low back, and just have some general awareness. So all good for all gardening things. This is kind of my theme for the week. So I'm gonna come and lay down. Morning, Randy. You'll need a hand towel and like a strap or something. So come and lay down. You will need your chair at some point. I'm gonna just move my chair off to the side. Lay down and have your, let's say have your hand towel. Maybe we'll just, no, so have your strap nearby. We'll do the strap part here. So you can have a pillow under your head if you need to. Wow, it's the wind and the snow is really whipping up out there. Oh my goodness. We're gonna have a white Christmas, everybody. So I'm putting a strap right here, kind of in the middle of my thigh. If you don't have a strap that has a buckle in it, then you're going to tie it with your legs parallel, about as wide as, I'm going to say, your sit bones, but what I'm not looking for is a really wide leg. We'll do that later on. But for now, we're just having the legs, we're supporting the legs as they come out of the pelvis. And so that when you relax your legs, they're just resting in the strap. You don't have to push into them. They're just kind of leaning outward.
It's hard work.
It is hard work. So Ken,
The strap is 50 feet long.
Ken, bring yours down a little bit lower. So the middle of your thigh, instead of close to your knee, instead of up here. Yeah. Do you have it?
Oh, I got it.
Okay. And then your feet are on the floor or on the bed, wherever you happen to be. You can have support underneath your head if you feel you need a little bit of lift, especially if your upper back is fairly rounded and your shoulders round forward. Chances are, if you lay down with that kind of shape, this is what's going to happen. Your chin will lift up like this and you'll shorten the back of the neck. So we want to support the shoulders where they are and lengthen out through the back of the neck. So that might be why you'd have a little bit more lift there. And I like to just keep my hands on the front of my body. You're welcome to join me in doing that. I kind of find, or take your arms out to the side, whatever feels right for you. The heels of your hands, see if you can find your front hip points, the ones I showed you on the pelvis. And what's the bone that you're lying on in the back of the body? Do you remember?
Sacrum.
Sacrum, yay! So now you have a visual of the sacrum sitting inside the two halves of the pelvis. So imagine that you are balancing right there. Maybe rock just a little bit from side to side, just a little bit of movement in your pelvis. This is the challenging work. Is can I just do it a little bit? I have my heels of my hands resting on my two hip points. Let your pelvis come settled into the middle, and then point your middle fingers down towards the pubic symphysis at the front. And check in and see, do I feel like this is level here? So in order to get the pelvis to the angle that we need it to be, we line up, this is kind of like become universal. We line up the front hip points with the pubic symphysis, or the pubic bone for lack of a better term. And we want to line that up so it feels parallel to the floor. So that will create a little bit more of a sensation of a lift or an arch through your low back. So to find it, just start to tip your pelvis forward and back. So we did a little bit of rocking side to side. Now we're moving forward and back. And with your hands here, you can kind of feel like when you drop your low back towards the floor, your pubic bones rise. And when you go the other way, your hip points rise and your pubic bone drops. So after a few movements like this, then where's the place where they feel more level? You have a feeling that you're more level through the pelvis. And then you can take your hands away and reach them out to the sides. We'll start with a little bit of breath here. If you feel it's too much to pay attention to your breathing, by all means, please focus on something else, whether it's a single point of awareness, or you can open your eyes and look at something on the ceiling with a soft gaze. You don't have to do the breath work if it doesn't feel like it's good for you. But what I'd like you to do is notice how your breath is. Notice what happens, like you're not pressing your legs into the strap, but you're letting them rest into the strap. So when we breathe, the diaphragm moves downward towards the pelvic floor, and the diaphragm sits inside your rib cage all the way around. It's almost like a parachute or like a jellyfish. It sits below the heart and lungs and above all the other organs. So it's kind of sandwiched between organs. When you breathe in, it's because the diaphragm contracts, and it contracts by moving downward. So when it moves downward in your body towards your pelvic floor, it presses on your organs and allows your belly to move because your organs become a little bit displaced. So I'm looking for you to take your breath a little bit longer so you can start to see if that's happening in your body. If when you take a breath in, do you feel your organs, whether you feel it is that's my organs being displaced, or simply, do you feel your belly rising and falling, rising on the inhale and dropping on the exhale? And if it's not happening, kind of go, that's interesting. It means your diaphragm's not moving the distance that it needs to move. So you can kind of go, can I make my belly move? Can I invite my belly to move, expand on the inhale, and drop down into my body on my exhale? Because then the diaphragm moves back up. The diaphragm probably moves about 1 inch to 3/4 of an inch, and it's connected to the heart and lungs. There's what's on top of the diaphragm is called the central tendon, and it's attached to your heart. So it pulls everything, it pulls your heart down a little bit every time you breathe in, if it's moving downward, and it lets it rest and gives it a ride back up on the exhale. I want to go one step further, which is kind of maybe challenging to find. I'm going to say that right now because it's not an area that we spend a lot of time considering. So as the diaphragm moves down towards your pelvis and your belly expands, we want to be able to feel like the pelvic floor is becoming relaxed. That 3 layers of muscle relaxes. And then as we exhale, there's a slight engagement to the pelvic floor muscles as the diaphragm moves up. Everybody has a pelvic floor. Everybody has 3 layers of muscles. Not everybody has been aware of them for most of their life. But it has so much to do with the health of your hips and your low back and other places within the body as well. If we don't have this ability for the pelvic floor to mimic the diaphragm, then we're not allowing a full breath to come in. We're not allowing the breath to get to places in the body. We'll just do a couple more here. So full inhale, whatever that means for you, and a full exhale. So maybe you start to feel that engagement, that contracting in the pelvic floor as you exhale. There's a little bit going on here, a lot to kind of pay attention to. So if you ever can't sleep, try this. It'll get your mind off whatever thoughts are going through your mind. Okay, then let's let go of that. You can keep the strap here, but I want to roll into the back of the pelvis again. So we start where we start, and then we're going to roll. I've used the analogy before as if you had a heavy metal ball in the center of the pelvis, and it rolls towards your low back and holds your low back to the floor. And then it rolls back to the pelvis, and then rolls back to the low back and holds your low back into the floor. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Yeah. So how you do that? Well, you can do it with the in breath or the out breath. What does it feel? Try both. Try breathing in when you roll the ball back. See what it feels like. And then try breathing out when you roll the ball back. There's going to be one that probably fits a little bit more optimally. I don't want to say correctly because there's reasons you could do anything with anything, and there's cause and effect. Have you figured it out? What works really well with the metal ball rolling into the lumbar spine? And what works well with you coming back to the center? Any guesses in the studio here?
Out.
Out when?
To roll it back.
Yeah, you figured that out. Feel how the breath kind of comes in with ease. So that's one way. If you're not feeling that expansion of your abdomen when you breathe in, it's one way to try to convince your body to breathe that way. So it's an exhale when you roll the metal ball into the lumbar, and it's an inhale when you come back. Because it kind of naturally, as you tilt your pelvis back and you roll this ball, this imaginary ball into your low back, you feel how your belly kind of hollows out and sinks. And then when you come back, it releases. So that's the idea. We have little exercises we can do to get your body to be retrained. Okay, come back into the middle. Let's undo the strap just a little bit and take your feet wide. We're going to keep it right sort of in the middle. So if you've tied a scarf, you'll have to undo the scarf. Take your feet as wide as a yoga mat. And now we have to do a little bit more action. We're going to press into the strap to keep the strap from falling down. So notice outer hips engaging, and I'm going to let your pelvis come off the floor. So press into your feet lightly and start to lift your hips off the floor. See how heavy they are. Just that little bit of lifting. Oh my goodness. And then lift them up, lift your pelvis up to wherever you're able to. Notice when you come to the top position, are you still pressing into the strap? And then slowly lower down, still pressing into the strap. We're doing a little bit of work through the back of the pelvis, hamstrings, hopefully more gluteus muscles on the back of the pelvis. Let's go up again. Take your time. You don't need to just thrust the pelvis up into the air. We want to take our time lifting it, finding where the range of motion is. By pressing into the strap, we take away some of the work of the hamstrings. So the muscles at the back of the pelvis need to do the work. And if this is challenging, so you're kind of going up and down on the elevator here, this is challenging, could be because muscles of the pelvic floor are not where we want them to be. They might be a little bit short and tight. Think of something called reciprocal inhibition. So muscles on one side need to shorten for the muscles on the other side to lengthen. So the gluteus muscles are on the back of the pelvis. Pelvic floor muscles are on the inside of the pelvis. So in order for the gluteus muscles to engage, the muscles of the pelvic floor need to release. So perhaps we can do this where we take a breath in on the way up, and we take a breath out on the way down. We'll do 4 more. Keep pressing into the strap, keep activating your gluteus muscles. You might feel it in your legs a little bit, but I really want to focus on what's happening at the back of the pelvis. So a breath in when the pelvis goes up. This is probably the last one here. And a breath out when you finally come down. And settle. Then right where your feet are, keep your feet where they are and let your knees drop towards each other. So do you do this internal rotation? If you feel like your feet are too wide to get your knees to drop, just where your feet are. So now we are narrowing the front of the pelvis and widening through the back of the pelvis. We'll just take another couple of breaths here. Breath is a really great tool. I want to say that. It's a really great tool to retrain things within the body, the connection between the mind and the body. Having said that, breath can be a trigger for some people and feel like it's anxiety producing. So I always want you to feel comfortable in trying it and also letting it go. Okay, so now we can take the strap off and slide it down. And then bring both legs in towards your body one at a time. You can hold on around your shins, or if you feel like, I can't do that with my knee, bring your hands to the backs of your knees. And now in this new shape, let's do some rocking from side to side. Kind of nice, isn't it? And if you bring your legs a little bit closer and maybe even lift your head off the ground, you might feel the rocking across your spine and on your spinal muscles in a certain part of your back. If you bring your head back down and maybe even take your legs a little bit away from your head, you'll feel them in a different spot. So you have lots of room to play with, where do I want this massage? Since we just worked through the back of the hips, I'm going to let my legs float away from me a little bit. My hands hold on to my knees to not let them fall out. And I'm rocking across my buttocks muscles that I just were playing with. Okay. And then come back into the center. Take your arms out to the sides and we'll let our legs hang like this. So a little bit more challenging would be to lift your heels up like you're sitting in a chair. This would be a little less challenging depending on your body and where you're at. Notice the difference. So the criteria is, if you're going to lift your legs in the air here, you got to keep them together. Otherwise, drop them down. It'll be easier to keep them together there. And then start to take your legs and your pelvis, rock them over towards the right, maybe about halfway, and then come back through the center and go about halfway to the other side. So notice what's happening. I want to start moving at first through my pelvis, but then I want to create movement that keeps the unit of my legs and my pelvis connected. So one of the ways the body will take the path of least resistance is, as you go closer to one side, here's me coming to the right. So my right leg slides forward more, my left leg slips back. But what I'm looking to do is, when I come over, I don't want them to slide. So now I'm starting to connect to a set of muscles called obliques. So only go so far that you can still control that movement. And can I suggest that you breathe while you do this? Even breath. Now, which would be the harder movement? Would it be going to the side or bringing your legs back up from the side? What do you think? Bringing them up? Okay, so if you bring them up, whatever you find the more challenging movement, exhale during that, because we already saw that when we exhale, the pelvic floor engages, which means it connects to the other core muscles. So see if you can breathe. We'll try it both ways. I find it more challenging to bring my legs back up. So I'm going to exhale when I come back to the center. Then inhale when I take my legs to the side. Last one on whichever side you want to have your last one on. And then bring your feet back down. Roll over to one of your sides. And then come up. Then you don't know me very well, do you? I think you do. You wishful thinking. That's at the end of the class when you do all of the other good stuff. So as you come up, I'm going to give you an option to be on your hands and knees. And if that means, you have sensitive knees, you can put a blanket underneath. Or you're going to come up and stand and use your chair for your table pose like this. Okay. So if you need a blanket, you can put a blanket underneath your knees. Everybody okay?
Yes.
Yeah, my socks that don't match my outfit. Get them out. Okay, so hands go down. Tuck that in. Hands come down, and hands are part of your foundation now, so it really does matter how you set them up, whether they're on the chair or on the floor. Look to see. I like to do this when I'm on my table pose, to lay my forearms down, and I really want my forearm to come out and be even right at my wrist. So I'm looking to not have my wrist turned in or turned out, but even with my forearm. So forget about where your fingers are pointing. That's something different. Well, that's another way you can do it, but I would rather look to see, where's my hand begin? And can I connect my hand as if it's a suction cup all the way around here? Can I find a way to create a lift in the center of my palm, as well as pressing into every fingerprint? Now, what does that mean? Maybe have your shoulders not quite vertical over your wrist, because notice that if you come forward, notice how your hand might be challenged to stay in that shape and with those actions. So have your shoulders be a little bit behind. And then start to push into your hands as if you wanted to slide them forward, and shift your hips back and allow your tailbone. So now you know where the coccyx is, tailbone and the back of the pelvis to get heavy and long. I'm going to focus primarily on that part of the body, and then come forward as if you're flipping your tailbone up towards the ceiling. Let your movement be right back there in your tailbone, which you can't feel on the outside of the body. Most of us can't. Might be a few people. And then you're flipping it up. So your tailbone disappears. So unless you've injured your tailbone, it's kind of a part of the body that you really don't connect with. Am I right? You know when you've injured your tailbone, but most of the time it's just, you probably don't give your tailbone a thought. So I'd like you to think about your tailbone, give it some love now. So you're flipping your tailbone up and you're dropping it down. It's similar kind of movement to what we were doing on our backs, but now we're not on our backs. You can do this standing, Jean, with your hands on the chair. So 2 more times. You can see moving the pelvis has so much to do with the low back. And really, there's a response. You can feel it up into your shoulders. We're not doing a great big movement, but it is having a ripple effect through the whole body. Okay, then come back. I'm going to say into what I would call neutral. And I'd like you to wag your tail from side to side. So you have a tail. If you want to move your tail from side to side, how are you going to get that to happen? Just your tail.
Just my tail.
Just your tail. Yeah. So what I'm not having you do is kind of like big movements like this. I want you to really focus on, I know what the tailbone looks like. I just saw a visual of it. Move your pelvis from your tailbone. So what we end up doing is we're shortening one side of the body while we're lengthening the other side. We're creating more space between the ribs and the pelvis on one side while we create less space on the other side. So it's less about me moving my upper body and more about me moving my pelvis, which can be challenging because we often don't allow the pelvis to move like this. Okay, one more time on each side. And then one more thing here, if it's okay on your hands, we won't stay too long. I'd like you to draw circles with your pelvis. So not big circles, not coming all the way back to your heels, but you come forward to the side. Yeah, there you go. Now I know who's got the dance moves in the room. Tom. Go both directions too. Like as if you had a pencil in the center of your pelvis facing downward and you're trying to draw a circle on your mat with your pencil. Is that a good visual? The things we do in this class, that would be that like interesting artwork, wouldn't it? And you can do that in a chair too. Okay, and then we're done. We're done with the floor. So you can walk your hands back, tuck your toes. There's a better way for you to come up off the floor. I'll encourage you to do that. I really like this way, tipping back and then walking my hands back because it's symmetrical and I can have support the whole way. But you might need a chair to have a little bit of help to come up or, another way. Okay. How's everyone feeling? Yeah, okay. Looser? Okay, good. I actually do too. Remember when I came, because I was gardening yesterday and I couldn't bend down with ease. So now I can.
I have a problem with the muscle right in here.
That's your gluteus muscle. What
Which
gluteus
on
maximus?
one side, when I go for a massage,
Yeah. A knot.
it's bad, and the other side it's always the same.
It could be it's tight.
But it's got to do with the way I walk.
Absolutely. So turn your chair around. We're gonna get into that a little bit right now. Yay. Turn your chair around so you can have something to lean on. I've got my right leg back behind me. Straight leg. So with your leg being straight, I'm just resting on the tip of my toes. I want to see, can I make this muscle work? Can you squeeze your bum on that side and then let it go? So you can have your foot resting. We'll give it a little bit of break to start. So I'm squeezing and I'm letting go. I'm squeezing, letting go. Squeeze. Yeah, it's working.
I can see it.
Yeah, okay. That's good because I'm really working on that with my hip stuff that's going on. My gluteus maximus does not turn on very well. Okay, so now I want you to squeeze and hold, but keep breathing. Don't hold your breath. And notice if you're squeezing more in the back of your leg or you're squeezing more in your bum. And it's your bum that I'm looking for. So I'm leaning forward, but I'm not I'm not shrugging my shoulders to support me here. I'm still using my standing leg as part of my foundation. So you're still squeezing, yeah? Okay, now lift your foot off the ground. Doesn't have to be a lot. What I want you to try to avoid is lifting and leaning forward more. So as you lift your leg, it means it's coming from here. Doesn't have to be a lot. We're just hovering the toe above. So now the stakes are higher. Can you feel it more in your bum? Okay, you're holding it. So now this muscle, this gluteus muscle, is holding your leg in space. So it's not a big movement. Here's the movement though. Rotate outward. And I'm going to show you from behind. So maybe it's a little bit easier to see. Rotate outward. And back to center. Do you see? Not a big movement. The movement's not coming from my foot. I'm not trying to turn my foot out. I'm doing it. And what you might also find is your gluteus medius on the other side is starting to fatigue. It's a 2 for 1. Don't you love 2 for 1s? Okay, one more, and then you're going to hold it turned out. So you've got the squeeze. If you're finding that this is really aching on this side, press into your big toe base on your standing foot. Okay, let go, let go. So now I want you to notice how quickly does that fatigue feeling, that sensation of fatigue go away? Quickly. No, you still have it? Okay. And that's the side you feel tight in, that you were lifting. Oh yeah, okay, okay. Okay, well, we'll release it too. Okay, we have a second side. You ready? So it's like a 4 for 2 or 4 for 2. We lean forward. We'll do the same steps. Lean forward, slightly lean forward. Now so what I'm trying to create is, here's my leg in line with my body. By taking my leg back, I'm going into hip extension. This is called hip extension. And then I lean forward, so I'm kind of taking a little bit of the hip extension away. And I've got my foot resting down, so this doesn't have to work as much, but I want to connect and go, can I squeeze my bum here? Just the left side. Notice if the right side wants to get in on it again, like you had your work. These are different muscles. So now you know if you press into the base, the ball of your right big toe, the ball of your baby toe, and the center of your right heel, you might stay a little bit more balanced. Not to say that you won't fatigue these muscles. The gluteus medius is necessary for stability. If you didn't have it, you'd fall over when you go to walk. So, but I'm squeezing and I'm letting go. I'm squeezing. Yeah, totally put your hand back there. You what? You feel it more in the front. Yeah, you know why? I said it before. When this contracts, this lets go. Well, you want this to let go. If this cannot contract, it's because this is not letting go. So it's like a 3 for 1. Okay, so then I want you to hold it. So if you feel it in the front, it's because you're also releasing through the front, the hip flexors. Then get ready. You're going to lift the leg up, but you're lifting from your bum. So sometimes it's like, you might want to lift from your back. But we're lifting and holding. Okay, still holding it. Now let's do the external rotation. Now what my body probably wants to do is my whole pelvis wants to turn. But I don't want that. Because I know that's my body avoiding the things that will make me stronger. You know, there's an intelligence to the body, but it really likes the path of least resistance. How are we doing? So much concentration in the room. All that chatter that was in here. How does it feel on this side, Tom? Is it hard?
It's not hard.
Not on hardens. Okay, interesting. Okay, so one more time, one more turn. Turn it out, and now hold it out. Check to see if your pelvis turned. That's what you were holding it the whole time? Well, that's okay. Hey, bonus. So now turn it. Notice how your right hip is coming a little closer to the chair though. Yeah, see, the body will take the path of least resistance. So notice the differences between the two sides. Okay, and then let's step down. Let's see how quickly it goes away. I can feel like I've worked those muscles a little bit more. So the gluteus medius, the other one back there, does an internal rotation. So have the chair beside you. Maybe have, I've just kept, I was this way and I just turned, so I've got my right side. Doesn't really matter, whatever feels okay. And I'm gonna just have, I think it's probably better just to have a slight bend rather than hiking the hip up. So slight bend in your knee, and we're gonna go inward, an inward turn. It's the same idea though. What I don't wanna do is this. I'm exaggerating, just from the hip. Can you feel what's happening back here too? Maybe if you want to, you can put your hand on your bum. We're not moving the whole body. And you don't have to go way out. We're just going from neutral, from the center, inward. So it might feel like, hey, I'm going further if I take it way out here and then turn in. But I'm going from this place inward. Big toe base, baby toe base, center of your left heel. Okay, one more time. We're going to hold it turned inward. Breathe. I feel some shaking going on, a whole lot of shaking going on in my right buttocks. Okay, let it go. Second side. Notice if it goes away or whether it hangs on. Like a sense of the fact that you've worked those muscles is okay. But if it's like, oh, it's pain that's not going away, that's a different story. So now, big toe base, baby toe base, center of the right heel, bend your left leg, and we're going to turn inward. It's not a big movement. Maybe it's less on this side, maybe it's more. So the movement is from the center, turning it inward. You'll know because your foot will go out even just a little bit. Way bigger. It's not a big range of motion, but it's a lot bigger than what I have on my right side. So we've kind of got some traction here. Leg is hanging. Pelvis is level. What time are we? Boy, this class goes by quickly. We will use the hand towel. Okay, one more time, and we're going to hold it. Hold it, turning inward. Probably going to be a bit of a reciprocal action of the right side turning in as well to stabilize you. So you might feel it on both sides. Okay, then let's step down. Yay, it's over. That part's over. So now get your chair out. Or turn your chair around, I should say. Your chair has been out. And get your little towel, your hand towel. We're going to use that. And I want to do a little bit of releasing through the low back first. So that means we kind of wiggle towards the front of the chair. I just have this towel across my lap. I'm wiggling towards the front of the chair. Then start to get your sit bones to wiggle back as you lean forward. So if I started back here, then I don't have a lot of room to go. And I want to be able to, it's almost like walking my sit bones back. We have slidey chairs. So I'm going to slide my sit bones back as I start to lean forward. And I want to start releasing from my upper thighs, kind of back here around. Think of this lengthening through here. Focusing on the low back for sure. But we could allow the whole back to release as well. When you get to wherever you're resting here, notice if your upper back is feeling the biggest stretch. I want to concentrate it a little bit more down here. So if your upper back is doing this, this doesn't get to lengthen. So we kind of need to do the opposite. Lift through the upper part of the body and lengthen through the low part of the body. It's kind of like a little bit of playing with it. I'm totally okay with you going further down. Again, I'm looking for you to have a releasing sensation through the back of your pelvis and your low back. Feels really good for me today. Remember how I said how you breathe. You know, we breathe in and the diaphragm moves down. Well, it can't really move down very well in this position because we might have some compression through the abdomen. So the next phase of the diaphragm, once it moves down, is it widens outward. It spreads the ribs out to the sides and lifts them up slightly towards your armpits, the lower ones. So can you bring your awareness to that part of your body right now? I'm looking for you to have a sensation of lengthening through the back of your pelvis and your low back. If you come too far forward and down like this and all you feel is your upper back, come higher. Rib cage widens, ribs lift up towards your armpits slightly, the lower ones lift up like bucket handles. Okay, then come back up slowly. Take your time coming back up. And let's do a little releasing too. So stretch one leg, stretch both legs out. Go cross right over the left, and then start to slide up. So if you're able to go above the knee, you'll go above the knee. If you have to hike your hip up to get it there, you're going to stay low. But the other issue here is if your bottom leg isn't bent, I'd like you to lift your left leg and move into a little bit of a bend and notice what you feel in your right leg. So this is to prevent you just from sinking into the back of the left knee. So a little bit of a bend here, but you also might be here and a little bit of a bend. Notice where you feel this. Where is anyone feeling this? Yeah. Outer hip? Yeah, so kind of the very place we were working. Now we're releasing it. You can kind of play a little bit with leaning forward, similar to what we did in the last pose. If you're leaning forward, support yourself on your legs. Again, if this is the case, you're holding this leg here. You let it be heavy resting on your shin and press your shin up into your leg. Maybe you're more here. Couple breaths. And then let's release that wherever you've been folded to. Slide back out. Notice. Change sides. Right leg now will bend. So if your ankle is still down there, your calf is on your shin, bend to protect this knee, but also to give it some resistance, give it some leverage. Oh yeah, that's a good stretch for me right there. You can lean forward. You feel it's good? Yeah.
I was doing that wrong. I wasn't getting my foot flat on the floor.
Ah, okay.
I can get the leg up there.
Yeah.
But as soon as you put it flat.
Yeah, it holds it in place, right? Yeah. Not wrong, just different. Now you find a way that you get something better out of it. I always say that your yoga practice is an exploration. You're on an adventure to figure out and discover new territories, new sensations. Yeah, can I release that? So if that works for you, if it helps that spot, then you can do that every day.
Yeah.
Okay, does it feel like we've been here the same amount of time?
Mhm.
Okay, then let's slowly come back out. Now we're going to take the hand towel. And I'd like you to fold it. So here it is, hanging on the rung. These are kind of thin, these ones. Fold it in half. This is a little bit of towel origami. Fold it in half again. And then can you fold it in half again? And then fold it in half again.
No.
Yeah, that's all we need. Because now we're going to put it, maybe I'll turn. We're going to put it right up here. As close as you can to your pubic bone. Now, also, I want to check in and see, I didn't put a blanket on here. So I'm thinking, I want to put a blanket on my seat of my chair because I want to be able to align my spine. I should have had you do that first. So now if this pops open, then you're in trouble. You have to do it all over again. So then bring your legs to wherever you feel you need them so that you can feel the towel there. Maybe even walk your sit bones a little bit closer to each other. And I want you to squeeze the towel where it is. So what you're not doing, you're not squeezing your knees together. Okay, so I want to focus a little bit more on the pelvic floor muscles, particularly near the front, and squeeze the towel from up here, not down here. It's hard. Got to concentrate, huh? So because it's not very intrusive, we're doing it more subtly. So it's important whenever we do any squeezing of anything, after we squeeze something, we want to let it go completely. So the breath, if you haven't figured it out already, try exhaling when you squeeze, inhaling when you let go. Remember way back to the very beginning with the pelvic floor to let go on an inhale. Notice if you're trying to squeeze the towel by moving your knees. What I'm noticing is as I squeeze the towel, I get a little taller. I feel like I'm moving my sit bones that I was sitting on closer together. And then I'm letting them widen apart. Yeah, you're with me on that? It's not easy. You got to concentrate. We need the muscles of the pelvic floor to be elastic. That means we need them to engage and we need them to let go. Particularly if anyone is experiencing any kind of incontinence of any kind, stress incontinence or urge incontinence. And that happens as we age. You know, the elasticity of the tissues of the muscles in the body start to be less. I thought you had a question. Okay, last time I'm going to have you hold it. Hold the squeeze, but keep breathing. So now we breathe by letting the rib cage widen. Feel that little bit of hollowing and connecting to the low belly. So elastic muscles here. Okay, last one. Okay, and then let go. Take your little towel and move it up to your knees. Now I'm just making it really hard for your brain. Because I'm going to say, I don't want you to squeeze the towel. I want you to keep the same light pressure that you have with the towel. I want you to continue to squeeze where the towel used to be. Okay, you ready? Okay, so inhale, pelvic floor relaxes, sit bones spread. Exhale, squeeze the towel, not where it is, but where it used to be. Let it go. This is almost harder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Feel that.
Yeah, it's hard not to squeeze the towel, right? Just keep it light. Welcome to your pelvic floor muscles. Yeah. So if you're feeling it through your inner thighs, it's probably too much around your knees. It's more, you want to feel what's happening in the bottom of your pelvis. We want that to engage when you exhale, and we want it to completely relax. Think of your sit bones spreading wide as you relax and inhale. Really great practice. Yeah. Okay, one more time. You know, I'm going to have you hold it. So as you exhale, so squeeze where the towel used to be, not where it is. Keep it light where the towel is now. Keep breathing, please. Breathe. Let your ribs widen. It's kind of working with how do we get the diaphragm to move? Okay. On your next inhalation, let go of the squeezing. You can take the towel out.
And when you're squeezing, it's just so normal to hold it.
I know, but don't. Every time you hold your breath, you're going to create pressure build up somewhere in the body. And we want to find a little bit more of a fluid experience of your energy moving through your body. Okay, so now we'll finish with soles of your feet together. Well, you can bring the inner edges together. You can rest on the outer edges, depending on how mobile your ankles are. So instead of coming forward with your feet apart, I'm going to see, lengthen out through your thighs from your hips out to your knees. You can bring your hands to the back of the chair. I kind of do this. And I lean forward. I want to open up the space between my inner groins and my inner knees. So that means along here. You can come forward. Don't fall out of your chair though. You can come down. You can find where you're opening through the inner groins, but also opening through your lower back. This is a chair version of bound angle pose. Where is it that you need to be? Please don't fall out of your chair. You'll land head first and that won't be fun. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, it is pretty close to 10 o'clock, but I'd like to take at least 5 more minutes of your time if you can spare it. If not, just take a couple minutes in a Shavasana. So now we're resting. We're going to rest for 5 minutes and let the intelligence of the body kind of take everything that you were doing, all that mind, body, you were bringing your mind into your body and make it more aware of what your movements are. You were learning something new, retraining. So you can put your chair out if you want. You don't have to. You can lay down without any support. I kind of like the idea of this. Here's another way you can do this too, is if you got your legs, if you're going to do the legs up on your chair, you can have your feet together and your knees wide. It depends on what's going on in your body, whether if you have a harder time releasing the pelvic floor, then practice releasing it in a pose where there's more openness in the pelvic floor. If you have more of a harder time with strengthening it, then maybe you go here. But the key is you have to have both. And sometimes you can't get the strengthening without the letting go. So I'm going to say probably everyone needs to spend time with a releasing effort in their pelvic floor. I'll turn off the lights in here. And then you can take some time to settle and see, is this the best pose for me today? Yeah, I think it is. Notice if there's tension anywhere in your body. And once you've noticed if there's tension, is there a way to release the tension from your body? It sounds so simple just to say, well, just let it go then. It's never that simple though. You have to identify it and go, do I feel tension in my right buttocks while I'm resting here, my left, or my hip flexors? Or my jaw? Can you connect your breath down into your pelvic floor, inviting it to release and relax as you inhale? And without even doing anything, feel the subtle, very subtle, like a 2% or 5% engagement. You're not even trying to make it happen. You're just allowing the relaxation to happen and then see what happens afterwards. Hear the sound of my voice. And please stay here if that's what your heart desires. Even if you're in the studio, I keep saying that we don't have to finish all sitting. You know, the practice at the end is for you to go inward, and sometimes you might want to just stay a little more inward and not make connection yet with others. Maybe you're not finished going inward. So do what serves you. Thank you for joining me for this session, for this class. Here's your pelvis again. Here's your tailbone. Pubic symphysis, sit bones. And now you've had an experience with back of the pelvis, the movement of the femurs. You see? All the movements. So someone has unmuted.
Yeah.
It means it's going to be, the camera's going to be on you. I'm going to unmute you just until we're finished. Hang on. Or mute you, I should say. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me. How do you feel? Good. Okay, awesome. Peace. Be kind to your pelvis.